Morning in Manila. We're about an hour into our shortened trading day. Let's kick off with our top story. The taxes collected by the government continued to dive in the month of April, and the Finance Department attributes this to the deadline extension of the tax payments amid the lockdown. You can see on your screens here preliminary data from the DOF shows that combined collections by the Bureau of Internal Revenue and the Bureau of Customs amounted to almost 106 billion pesos. That's 63% lower than a year earlier. The April figure is also almost 1/5 short of the 131 billion peso target for the month. BIR collections declined 70% to 71 billion pesos from nearly 234 billion pesos 1 year ago. Meanwhile, the BOC generated almost 34 billion pesos in revenues. That's lower by 34% from 1 year ago. Total collections for the first 4 months of 2020 amounted to nearly 707 billion pesos, which is 21% smaller than a year ago. Now, the deadline for income tax payments has been moved at least 4 times from its original date of April 15th. The new deadline is now set for June 14th. DOF Chief Sonny Dominguez said what the government really lost were VAT and excise tax collections, as much of business activities were halted during the enhanced community quarantine that started in March. But the government may find a new tax source in the form of digital services such as online streaming. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Joey Salceda has filed this proposed Digital Economy Taxation Act, which seeks to levy a 12% VAT on digital ads, internet-based subscriptions, and e-commerce platforms. This includes Spotify, Netflix, and advertising on Google and Netflix. Secretary Dominguez said VAT collections from these services should be, quote, seriously considered to plug leakages. The proposal has also the backing of BIR Deputy Commissioner Arnel Gubaya, saying it's about time for the Philippines to capture these tax leakages on digital transactions. Salceda estimates that the measure will generate at least 29 billion pesos in annual revenues for the government. Let's kick off our markets here offshore. You can see on my screens here how the US or Wall Street pared back those gains. Recall that on Tuesday, at least Monday overnight and over until Tuesday, we actually saw a rally across Asia following a euphoric run from the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 as there were hopes of Moderna's vaccine coming to fruition. However, those hopes were short-lived. There were concerns on the vaccine again, and they said a lot of analysts are saying that there's now concerns that a successful vaccine will be a long way off. In fact, Moderna, which is pioneering this, lost 11% in just 1 day overnight. Still, it is up 266% year to date. So you can actually see here how Wall Street did not do very well. But if you look over at Asia, we are actually quite mixed. So you can still see Japan in the green, the Topix up by 0.4%, Nikkei 225 up by 0.8%. China, however, is actually in the red, but Hong Kong is trying to inch its way into gains and continuing those gains from yesterday. Over in South Korea, the Kosdaq is also up by 1.4%. Now let's move over to our local index. You're going to be seeing us extending, paring back those gains from yesterday. So we did open in the red this morning, but we have been trading sideways for the past hour. We are hovering around 5,500 levels here. That's down by 0.6% as of 1 hour. So that, again, falls after we did see the euphoria of 1.4% up yesterday, although that was on the back of very thin trades yesterday, just over 4 billion pesos exchanging hands, and also on the back of the 10th straight day of net foreign selling. I just want to take a very quick peek here at our sectors and how those are moving. Everyone in the red, save for mining and oil, which is rather flat. Those declines are being led by services, down by 0.9%. Holding firms as well, sold off by the same amount. Now, one thing I do also want to check in on is the oil prices, because this has actually strengthened after, recall that we had actually seen WTI futures slumping to negative territory. You can see that crater here on the right side of my terminal here, but has since been consolidating above $30 a barrel here. Oil is now trading at 31.93 a barrel. Now let's move over to some stocks that we are watching this morning. One is Macro Asia. These are stocks that are very pandemic related, so to speak. Macro Asia, of course, services the airline industry. They had soared yesterday. I'm going to try and pull out the 3-day chart for you here so you can see this run up to yesterday. That had soared 32% after the government. You've actually got the acting chief of NEDA, Carl Kendrick Chua, saying that there is a possibility for the government to take equity stakes in the battled industries such as airlines. And that had surged on the back of that news. It is paring back those gains. It's now down by 2 3/10%. But still, this rally came after 5 straight days of decline, and you can see those trading volumes yesterday. Very active stock. They're up by 680% of its 3-month daily moving average. Now, speaking of airlines, let's just take a quick peek at PAL and Cebu Pacific and how they're doing. PAL is now actually studying whether it can open its flights from the Davao hub. So it says it's studying the possibility of having commercial flights to Iloilo, Siargao, and Tagbilaran from Davao ahead of normal resumption of its regular operation. So recall that Davao is now under GCQ, unlike the rest of Manila. They have already announced together with Cebu Pacific that there will not be any commercial flights flying out of Naiya, Clark, and Cebu until May 31st. You can see here on my terminal here, PAL down by 0.2%, Cebu Pacific as well down 0.6%. One other one I want to report on is IMI. IMI is, of course, Ayala-led, and they had been, battered because they had shut down several of their plants during this COVID-19 crisis. They are now pivoting very clearly into the healthcare space. They're now looking to locally manufacture ventilators, of which they're part of a consortium in the UK, which is, of course, targeting COVID-19. So they say that they're doing this in collaboration with the Biomedical Engineering and Health Technologies Unit of De La Salle University. You can see IMI recovering and up by 3 9/10%. And my last stock to be watching out for today as we enter this broadcast is, of course, ABS-CBN. So much has been surrounding this. I'm going to take you towards HCP. What is the latest? Now, the latest is that their president and CEO, Carlo Katigbak, has said that they may now cut jobs by the month of August if they cannot go back on air soon. This on the back, of course, as the Supreme Court did not rule on the broadcaster's plea to halt the shutdown, and also the House of Representatives dropped a plan for a temporary permit. They had actually been hoping for a shorter franchise, but something that would come immediately. They had said that they promised their workers that they would try not to have any layoffs for 3 months, but if that goes on after August, then they will have to reevaluate that. Recall that ABS-CBN has around 11,000 workers, and they say they are losing as much as 35 million pesos in daily advertising revenues. You can see that it's actually continuing those gains. It's up by 2% following a couple of days of pain earlier on this week. Now, more on markets later on in the broadcast. Meanwhile, let's check in on other headlines that we are watching this Wednesday. Now, with more people slowly returning to work in areas under the modified lockdown, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry calls on the government to assist small businesses that have no means to conduct COVID-19 tests for their own employees. The business group insists that while large corporations can easily do it, it's really very costly for the MSMEs. Now, this appeal comes on the heels of presidential spokesperson Harry Roque's recent statement that mass testing falls on the shoulders of the private sector. Currently, under Health Department guidelines, only workers with symptoms or suspected to have contracted the coronavirus are required to undergo testing. The national government says the cost of testing exceeding PhilHealth coverage should be shouldered by the employer. A proposed stimulus measure has been filed in the lower house, which includes a 20 billion peso allocation for testing efforts in Metro Manila. Even the committee's co-chairman, Marikina Representative Stella Kimbo, says it may not be enough, but it is the government's assistance to the small businesses. Now, the Competition Commission is resuming the evaluation of some mergers and acquisitions now that Metro Manila is placed under a modified enhanced community quarantine. The Commission said it has started accepting new notification forms as well as new letters of non-coverage for transactions. Expedited review form notifications, however, will not yet be accepted. Submissions to the Mergers and Acquisitions Office may be done through the Commission's website. Parties submitting documents must also submit a written consent that's signed by their authorized signatory, granting PCC staff permission to access these documents. Hard copies of the documents must be submitted to the PCC office within 7 working days after the modified enhanced community quarantine is lifted over the area where the PCC office is located. Meanwhile, the 30-day merger notification deadline will still be suspended during the MECQ. Meralco maintains that it complied with the government rules on computing its customers' bills that's following complaints on the apparent surge in the firm's electricity charges. The firm explains that the May bill is the total of the kilowatt hours consumption from the current meter reading plus the estimated consumption reflected in the deferred April and March bills. Meralco made this clarification after Senator Win Gatchalian said the firm's electricity bill is confusing and that it failed to provide a clear explanation on why charges have gone so high amid the quarantine. On Monday, the ERC also asked the power distributor to explain its bill calculation. On top of this, the Energy Department is asking Meralco to explain the additional 47 peso transaction fee for customers paying through Meralco's mobile app. To address these concerns, the House's Makabayan bloc is seeking a probe into the sudden spike in Meralco's charges, citing consumer reports that some bills have tripled or even quadrupled despite the low consumption over the past months. Meralco earlier claimed that the surge in electricity bills is due to higher consumption amid the ECQ and the summer season, but Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate said this is questionable, citing a downward trend in demand based on the President's report to Congress, which was earlier this month. Now, as businesses continue operating with a workforce from home, technological solutions have come to the forefront. And one such technology is collaborative technology. Here to talk us through that, we have with us Jibu Matthew, who is VP and General Manager for Asia Pacific Corporation. Good morning, Jibu, and welcome to the broadcast.
Good morning, Danny.
Thank you for joining us all the way from Singapore this morning. Now, let's kick off with the fact that many businesses are caught off guard right now. Many are just completely lost when it comes to how to pivot. Give us an idea of what you are seeing is happening in the workplace right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. How well was the world prepared? Was the world workforce prepared technologically for something like this?
Well, so first of all, I would like to say thanks to digital technology, remote working has been on the rise for over a decade. And the world at large had different priorities around this. Well, if you look at what is happening in the last 10 years, so we have seen different initiatives around sustainability and green initiatives. We have local problems that in Philippines itself, in Manila itself, that affected because of the volcanic activity. We have been seeing a lot of gig economy was also a growing trend. But all these was actually a trend. However, the COVID-19 situation will probably make remote work the new normal because it's going to accelerate that trend. All of a sudden, we are all familiar with working online. We are all familiar with various technologies available for working and getting work done. Now, if you look at a lot of businesses out there, they're actually thinking of even switching a lot of their permanent employees to possibly work online in the future. Now, that's a very important trend as far as how telecommuting, and how or what the new norm is going to be.
Mentioned that people were already looking into this before this pandemic, but right now it's starting to accelerate it. And because of this, all the different types of technologies are now popping up. So it's quite clear that technology needs to be at the forefront. But people are confused as to which types of technology is suitable for their businesses, whether they should be continuing what they had already invested in for many years, or whether there should be a change in what they're doing now that this pandemic is at hand. Tell us about collaborative technology and why you think this is what we need right now.
Okay, that's a very interesting question, especially because we are a 8,000 people company with 13 offices worldwide. And we were able to switch to working online completely worldwide early in March itself. And it took us like 3 days to switch online. And that was
Wow.
actually possible because we were already having a lot of our processes digitalized. So we started off as a software company way back in 1996. We took over the cloud wave quite early. We saw that wave. We started building apps to solve one problem after the other. Now I'm saying this because it is quite contextual to your question here. And
Mm,
how were we able to switch to working from home so quickly? It's because we had digitalized almost every single function within the organization. So let's look at who are the typical stakeholders in such a scenario. Well, in such a scenario, you have your employees, you have communication between employees, you have communication between your employees and your customers. And
okay.
these are two major factors that actually are important to be digitized. And when you look at collaboration in general, it's not just collaboration in terms of emails, or it's not just about email. But today we are actually seeing virtual conferencing as an important part of collaboration. Virtual
Right.
conferencing has become as important as email today. Then you have collaboration in an organization around a document. So you need to have a collaborative document management system. Now, that's something which is important. Then you have collaboration around, well, something as simple as an invoice which you generate and send to your customers. So you're
Mm,
collaborating around an invoice, and you will have to send out reminders to your customers to make payment and facilitate collecting that payment. Now, that's something which is, again, some form of collaboration happening between employee and your customer. Now, that is one step. But if you look at the various other collaborative activities that we do, let's say you collaborate, like your salespeople collaborate around a customer. So you need to maintain customer information in single database. Now, how
okay.
do you do that? So you need to have a proper CRM. And once
Mm,
customers start buying your products, well, you need to support them. How do you allow or empower your support agents to ensure proper customer experience for your customers, for your paying customers, or for your free users? So, whatever be the strategy, collaboration takes different turns and is different for different stakeholders in an organization. And with the right set of collaborative technologies and the right set of tools, um, be it large organizations or SMEs who form the backbone of the Philippines economy, well, you have the right technologies in place to facilitate and improve employee productivity as a business. And now that's
mm.
something which is very powerful and helps you go regional or go global.
Jibu, you're mentioning that there are already these sort of technologies in place, the collaborative technologies like CRM, but they are not necessarily real-time collaboration, right? So it's not necessarily everybody working on the cloud at the same time. And what you're saying is that now your type of technology is very much cloud-based. Is this adopted already globally? Is this the global standard already, doing this cloud-based collaboration, given that there's still so many issues on data security, on which type of cloud-based platform to be using, and how long does it shift from the technologies that are existing right now towards this cloud-based model?
Okay, so there are two parts to it. One is about are there mature technologies out there, and is it easy and secure? The second part is about is it easy to switch? Well, talking about the first part, well, the first part is about how can you how mature are the technologies out there. But today, cloud is an enabler for a business or for an individual to collaborate and to work effectively. Now, if you look at cloud CRM tools, well, you have multiple salespeople, right? So if you look at the old way of doing things, you would have to go back to the office and start updating your manager about what happened, what was the conversation with your customer. But if you have real-time collaboration tools like within a CRM, well, your manager would know exactly what happened because you would have added some notes or created your next schedule with a customer right after the meeting with the customer. Or you could be taking notes on your mobile device, which can actually facilitate you to communicate easily with the other colleagues in your office. Now, well, one important thing is about communicating with your customers. The second thing is about how effective is cloud technology. Well, if you look at the technology out there, cloud is, as I mentioned, is an enabler. It helps you to make yourself ubiquitous. Now, that's something which is very powerful because wherever you are, if you have a smartphone, a smart device in hand, well, you could be collaborating with various approaches. Well, for example, when you're on the field, you just had a conversation with a customer. Well, you would like to save your travel time, right? So you would want to know who are the other customers around me whom I could try to meet. Well, the GPS on your phone is actually going to tell you where you are and actually can work with your CRM and facilitate identifying your nearby customers. Well, that's what technology can do. Of course, these are advanced use cases, but be it basic use cases in terms of keeping all colleagues in sync or about giving consistent user experience to your customers, well, cloud, CRM, and various other support tools can facilitate that in a productive manner for your employees.
You're giving examples, sir, of cases wherein it's already facilitating the normal day-to-day operations of a company, right? So you mentioned you can do site visits. Right now, that's not really possible. Are you seeing these tools as you mentioned the new normal? Are you seeing these tools as something that people can really use to change the way things are being done? Is this a transformative tool? Do you envision that all sectors will be now working from home? The collaboration will really be taking place remotely? Or do you still see these tools as being used as facilitating a normal physical interaction and improving the way that things are being done at the moment, or in normal circumstances, not at the moment?
So what we personally believe is, well, when you use the same tools in the normal times to get work done during your telecommute days, or when it is not normal like what we see today, your investment is best. You get the best returns for your investment.
Right.
And we believe that if you look at the video conferencing tools out there, various other online meeting tools out there, it was always there. So the technology has been there for quite some time. And this technology can actually facilitate you to get work done. And I think companies should move towards digitizing more of their business. And when
Okay.
I talk about collaboration and the current circumstances, as a matter of fact, we also ourselves launched a collaboration suite, a tool to help businesses in their collaboration needs, although remotely, and which we actually made available completely free because we understand that businesses need to digitize a lot more. And we believe that we can do our bit to support that. And that's very important for businesses to really digitize themselves for the normal times as well as for circumstances as we are in right now.
Okay, so it should actually be a seamless transition. So whether you are in normal
Absolutely.
times or in a lockdown, you should still be able to be using the exact same tools and not necessarily panic when this happens. Since you already mentioned the topic, it's very interesting that you have this free to use platform your clients are Fortune 500 companies. How about the MSMEs? We had just reported that these people cannot afford to digitalize everything. A lot of our e-commerce market leaders is the digital platform for very, very small businesses here. Tell us, in this situation in the Philippines, do we have the infrastructure, and are the companies even ready to take this step?
I think the government is making a lot of good moves in terms of improving the infrastructure. So that is a very positive sign. I would say that as and when there are more businesses going online, there will be a viral effect to the productivity benefits that you would get, because your clients themselves would be more digital, and the overall productivity benefits will actually double or triple or increase exponentially. Now, that's something which is very essential for more businesses to jump onto the bandwagon. Well, that said, we do provide tools that are absolutely free, which includes like video conferencing, online meeting software, document storage, and collaboration technologies, and training software that actually can help SMEs and large organizations. So that is, we have the right tools that can facilitate this particular use case during these unusual circumstances.
Okay, so it's not discriminatory to the larger corporations that can afford these. Actually, you do have these platforms that are specific to the smaller and medium-sized enterprises, and we do have the infrastructure here in the Philippines, or at least going towards that level. Thank you so much for your time and insights. That was Jibu Matthew, Vice President and General Manager for Asia Pacific of Zoho Corporation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Danny.
Okay, let's move on to our markets here. I just want to do a very quick peek here because we do have some other things to be breaking. I'm just going to be telling you about a report that we have from Colliers a couple of days ago, wherein they mentioned that office rents are slated to drop around 17%, and that this might be due for a slow recovery in 2021. Now, this is based on the fact that we did get our GDP figures for the first quarter, and they had noted that private construction actually grew 4.4% in the past quarter. That's versus the 26.5% growth in 2019. But they did mention that that was offset by the public spending in construction rebounding to 0.3% growth versus a contraction that we saw by 9.1% last year because of the fact that the budget spending was delayed. But nevertheless, they had an original projection of 900,000 square meters of net absorption for office space. They have now downgraded that to between 300,000 to 600,000. And as a result, vacancies could go up to 7% in the office space in 2020. Now, when you talk about other sectors apart from offices, what about the condos? What's going to happen to the condos and the investments there? They're saying that the condo delivery might be dropping by 26% to 10,900 units, as rents might fall by 5.5% this year. So they actually mentioned that this is because a lot are stopping the turnover and the construction of the residential markets. But they do note, if this is a bright spot at all, that this falling rents is actually slower than what we saw as 15% contraction during the Asian financial crisis in 1998. But it's still steeper than the 3.7% fall in 2008-2009. They did mention as of last year, there was a unsold inventory of about close to 50,000 condo units nevertheless. And there's still a lot of property downgrades that have been happening all throughout. Another issue to be talking about when we talk about the property space is the rent grace periods. It's very interesting to note this because this, of course, concerns people like us, individuals, both tenants and landlords. So there will be a grace period for rent payments applied to areas from GCQ, MCQ, and MECQ and ECQ. So even the GCQ, this according to the DTI, there will be a 30-day deferral for residential and commercial rents, and the rent due may be amortized over a 6-month period after the lockdown is lifted. Lessors who do not observe this 30-day grace period face imprisonment or at least 2 months or a fine of at least 10,000 pesos. So again, according to the PRA, the Philippine Retailers Association, there have been different types of waivers being given by the lessors to their rent tenants. Some have given 50% off of the rent, some 75%. Another thing is that the Trade Department, Mr. Lopez, mentioned that he disputed reports of the overcrowding at the malls in Metro Manila, saying they actually had some social distancing in place. So very, very quick check on the property space here before I end our broadcast, because it's very interesting to note whether these were affected, of course, by the recent releases in terms of their earnings. You had Ayala Land and SM Prime and Mega World also giving their earnings for the first quarter. You can see some bright spots here. Philippine Infradev up by 2 6/8%, but still the big guns, SM Prime, Vista Land, Mega World, Robinson's Land, these are the ones that had just opened their malls over the weekend, in the red this morning. And very, very quickly, just to break Mrs. G earnings, so that's Metro Gaisano, they posted a first quarter profit drop of 87%. That's as their insurance claims dip. But what's very interesting to note is that the revenues are still in positive territory, up 10%. They said that, despite the fact that they had insurance recoveries, which tapered their income, food retail, so food sales, up 9.9% from last year. So this food retail sales, of course, they still have their supermarkets and groceries still open, actually made do for that period, despite the fact that they had a lot of accounting issues as well as insurance recoveries, which they needed to do. And that's the first look into the business day. Today is Wednesday, May 20, 2020. Catch us again tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Danny Laurel, and we are One News.